Saying the growth of the virus is exponential, and there is no way that these numbers that we know officially are accurate.
I don't think anyone believes they're accurate. I don't think the Prime Minister would believe that the country should be warned about something like a second world war if he thought that there were only 200 cases and 3 deaths. So I don't think anyone believes this.
You have, in a way, extrapolated the math of US and UK and applied it to India. And so tell our viewers, if that same model was applied to India, you've been talking about what, 300 million cases?
So let me explain.
So explain why we are applying the same model.
Right. Okay. So actually, we're not applying the same model per se. We're applying the same parameters as what we see.
So the nature of the virus and
the nature of the virus.
Spread. Yeah.
The model itself, which we use, is something called India Sim. This is a simulation model of the Indian population that has been built over many years. We've built this over about 8 or 9 years, widely published from in the best medical journals for various other things. We've adapted this to coronavirus. So some people may have the question, well, how well does an American model apply here? This is not an American model. This is actually an Indian model built in India. It includes the age structure of India. It includes, the demography, where the healthcare facilities are, everything that's localized to India. In fact, pretty soon we will be producing state-specific estimates of what's going to happen, possibly in the next year or two, and also with what resources are needed in every one of these places. So please don't think that these are some model from somewhere else that we're trying to apply here. No, this is called India Sim.
So I want to understand that, because every country has a different demography. So for example, one of the reasons that they say that the mortality in Italy may be as high as it is because of how high the elderly segment of the population is, and that there is great social mingling, intergenerational mingling, which doesn't exist, for example, in American societies. So when you look at the numbers that you're looking at, you have tailored this to Indian realities.
100%.
What do the numbers tell you after doing that?
So the numbers tell us that we're probably expecting somewhere between 300 and 500 million cases before the end of July. Now, before...
I just want to let that sink in. 300 to 500 million COVID-19 positive cases in the next few months.
Right. And you think of it, I don't think people should panic, first of all.
Yeah, because that is making me panic.
No, don't. Because if you had COVID, you probably won't even notice it, possibly, because it just will be a mild infection and goes away. We are not concerned about 100. Eventually, everyone in India will get COVID, just like everyone in India has had the flu at some point. Please think of it like the flu, but think of it as a more dangerous form of the flu where there's more mortality in the elderly. What we are trying to prevent now is not that everyone will eventually get the infection. The question is, if we go on this current trajectory, because today it's almost like having a lot of dead wood and there's a fire starting. The fire is going to burn through the entire thing. But there's a point at which the fire becomes so large that you just can't manage it. That's what we're worrying about, which is having an additional 1 million or 2 million deaths in India spaced over a 2-year period or even a 1-year period is not such a big increase.
I mean, it would not be considered a health calamity because of the state of
public health. People might be concerned about.
I mean, it's a horrible thing to say.
It's a horrible thing to say.
It's a horrible thing to say but then that is what we're struggling with in a country with abject poverty as well.
Exactly. So if you said 10% more deaths in India this year, people might say, okay, is it worth destroying the economy over this? That is not the problem. This is a problem of public perception, because that 10% of increase is going to happen in a 2 or 3 week period. And when that happens, so today I'm out here telling your viewers we're about to expect something which looks like a big calamity. During that calamity, when it does happen, and I say when because I don't see any reason why it would not, I would be explaining to them at that point to say, don't panic now because this will come to an end. When you see thousands of people dying, for someone who's not a disease modeler, they think, oh my God, this is the end of the world. What we're trying to do is to prepare people to say, is that we're going to see that for a period of time. It'll come to an end. And at that point, a lot of people would have been infected, and then we all have immunity to the disease.
So first, the number, 300 to 500 million is what your numbers tell you for India alone from now. We're at almost at the end of March to July. So we're talking about literally what's called a surge.
Barkha, let me also explain. There are 3 different models by 3 different groups. And all 3 come at a similar conclusion. Okay.
Now, within these numbers, it's very important to break it down and say how many do you think will be mildly sort of affected, as we would be by any other flu, and how many would be fatally sort of impacted? And does the math actually show you that kind of specificity?
Yes, absolutely. So in fact, what we care about most in some sense is the peak number, because the peak number is when everyone is rushing to the healthcare system and the healthcare system can't deliver for them. The peak we would expect somewhere between 3 and 8 weeks from now would have about 100 million people affected, 10 million severe cases, and of whom maybe 3 to 4 million would actually require critical care, possibly even more than that, but that's the number that would require critical care. And roughly about a third to a half of that is our mortality rate. So you're talking about 10 million, 5 million requiring critical care, and anywhere between 1 and 3 million, depending on how well we respond, is the ones that we're going to lose, because they will need, oxygen flow masks and ventilators and all of that stuff. But that is just the peak number. Remember, this is going to continue beyond that. And it continues back. We'll probably have a break when it gets really warm. We hope and guess. We don't know for sure, but we're really extrapolating from the flu virus to say we're hoping this is going to happen. And remember, in November, December, it will come back, and there will still have been 700 or 800 million people that were never exposed to it, right? They were never exposed to the virus. So they will then get the disease at that point in time.
So just explain this to me even in a simpler way. Mm-hmm. Of these 300 million people, how many do you think can make it through as they would with any other flu or influenza?
So if it were, so typically every year, just to give you a comparison, India probably has, about 100 million, 80 to 100 million flu cases every year. We lose about 0.1% at best, very small number. Here, the problem is that the number is more like 2% and possibly even 3% given the state of our health facility, which is 20 to 30 times higher than what we lose in the flu.